Hey guys, what's going on? A couple days ago, I posted a video where I did a virtual mock draft on draftprospecthockey.com, and it was pretty interesting. There was definitely some questions I had with their rankings, and I think that was affecting the draft in interesting ways. But I wasn't really satisfied with just doing one virtual draft and seeing where everybody went. I kind of wanted to see if I ran it a bunch of times, where guys would start to fall on average. So I ran it again, and then again, and 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 again. In total, I ended up running it 100 times, so here's me doing that. Now, that isn't all the footage, and obviously I sped it up because I don't think you guys would sit here and watch me do that for several hours. But yeah, so here are the results. Okay, so here's a spreadsheet of the results. We ended up with 34 players on here. It was meant to be the first round, but because of uh, there's multiple players within the same pick technically, because you have a guy that's like 10.4 and another guy's at 10.9, for example. We ended up with a couple extra players, but it is what it is. And here's some interesting things. So Shane Wright went first overall every single time. Savoie went first overall, I believe, 91 times. His average draft position rounded to 2.1. Slavkovsky went fifth overall. Yeah, he was averaging 4.9, so basically fifth overall. I thought that was interesting. Savoy, I think, is interesting as well. I think this website is way too high on Savoy and low on Slavkovsky. And I think what's interesting is about that is that it just seems like these rankings are a little bit outdated. Savoy was definitely more highly thought of earlier in the year, I feel like, and Slavkovsky has really gained some momentum lately. But other interesting results, Lambert ninth overall. I mean, I don't disagree with the ranking necessarily, but actually having him go that high is something that I don't think is going to happen. So, again, this draft is just purely based off of their rankings. But if they built some kind of, I don't know, X factor code to, I don't know, you'd kind of have to do something specific for each player, I guess. But Lambert definitely not going that high. Or, well, I don't know, maybe he will, but I doubt it. So some more interesting results. Geeky with an average draft position of 14.3. That is still higher than I would take him, but it kind of sounds like that's lower than he'll actually go. I would be a little surprised if he didn't go top 10, top 11. So, yeah, that's geeky. Kind of the same for Gauthier at 15.3. That seems, a, well, that kind of seems about right, but I suspect he's going to go higher than that as well. Seamus Casey, 18.4. That's interesting. Mintyukov, 19.2. He's a huge wild card, so who knows with that guy. Oh yeah, Marco Casper, uh, with 25th overall, averaging 24.4 average draft position. And this is another instance where I think these rankings are a little bit outdated, and that's affecting the draft in a negative way. Because I feel like Casper's stock in particular has risen quite a bit lately. So having him that low doesn't really make sense. I mean, there's definitely people talking about him being a top 10 pick. So I I don't really want to see him go in the top 10, but I also don't see him going as low as 25. I would be very surprised if he was still on the board there. One other little tidbit is that Philip Massar actually went in the first round every time. I was a little bit surprised by that, but he did have the widest range of variance of every player. He was drafted as low as 32nd overall and as high as 13th overall. So that's basically 20 spots, 19 spots variance, which I thought was really interesting. And it's also interesting that he is overall ranked 22nd overall. Um, Yet he has such high variance. You would expect the variance to get larger later in the round because there's less certainty. The final player that actually rounded out our data set, the guy who on average was drafted 34th overall. Well, that's not accurate, but he's 34th on the list. He had a average draft position of 32.2. So what I did for these guys at the bottom is any time they didn't get drafted, I just set that value at 33 overall since that would be the first pick of the second round. Obviously, if I ran this past the first round every time, then we would get more detailed average draft positions for the guys at the end of this list. But that, quite frankly, was far more effort than it was really worth. But I do think it's interesting that Korchinski is going this low because I get the impression he's going to go much higher than that, much, much higher than that. In fact, supposedly the Sharks are quite interested in him if he's available at 11. So I thought it was interesting that he did make the uh, data set. I thought he would be higher than that though. And yeah, a lot of little surprises in the data. Okay, guys, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested and you did not see the first video using this simulated mock draft, I will put that video up over here. Click on it, like this video, high five your neighbor's dog. Yeah, go, 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 Avs.